Let's have a series of rapid fire Q&As. Which company would you like to see go public?
Right now, I wouldn't want anyone to see go public.
Why?
Um, I am a big believer that the moment you go public, it means you should go public once, get all the money you need, and then move on. You shouldn't go public and then need more money, more money, more money, more money. The reason we have seen those companies do it, it's because during those spec days, it was kind of good not to do it. So you had to do it. It's like free money, come get it. But again, I think it's companies that stay private get significantly more um, choice in what they do, what they say, how they do it. And I will point you to both Volocopter and Beta as two examples of the advantage of being a private company that is very well funded.
Morgan Stanley estimated the market size of advanced air mobility at $1.5 trillion, so T as in tango, in 2040. Question, were they on drugs or is it something that's attainable?
So the market size. So we have been on record many times for saying that my market size is bigger than yours is a futile exercise because we're looking so far out in the future that we don't even know if the planet is going to be here. However, we have broken down and we have developed our own forecast lately. And so what we forecast is that 1+ trillion number will be achieved by 2050, not by 2040. And so the idea is you are only scratching the surface when it comes to this. So when it comes to this urban air mobility, just imagine that today there is 629 cities with over 1 million people. And so even if you start by saying, let's say every one of those cities at certain point will have service, you're talking about a lot of airplanes that are needed. And this is the other part. We focus so much on these passenger, but there's cargo, there's EMS, there's regional. So once you start putting all of the stuff in the pie, it could very well be that the market could be a trillion with a T. But again, what we differ, I think, with the other folks is that we think the time frame is going to be farther out. And also remember that with every decade that goes by, you got better batteries, you got better materials, and last but not least, you have no pilot at certain point. And so we see this market growing a little bit like the hockey stick, but for the latter year, not for now. You will see some of this prediction again in general saying 2025 the market is going to be 5 billion, and my question is 5 billion what and where? Our prediction is the market maybe is going to be 100 million in 2025 or less, 50 million. So it's a different story.
So, in your predictions of the $1 trillion market in 2050, what do you put in the figure? Aircraft sale, service, and vertiports as well, the entire ecosystem?
No, for us, we're just looking at the aircraft. I mean, it's the MRO services, all this other good stuff. It's definitely going to be there. But again, we also have to imagine that this is a market that will leave a lot less of MRO than any of the markets before. There is no engine that needs to be overhauled, et cetera, et cetera. It's much more possible that a lot of the pieces in these airplanes is going to be a use it and throw it away rather than use it and repair. And so I would say that the ancillary revenue around this airplane might be more around the acquisition cost than a maintenance life around them.
When will we see a Chinese eVTOL flying in a Western airspace?
Uh, Next year, in 2 years. I mean, Western airspace, the Middle East, we think it's going to be one of the first places where you will see the three large region competing with airplane for the same passengers, meaning I wouldn't be surprised if by 2026 you will see Chinese, Americans, and European all competing with their own aircraft for the customers in the Middle East.
Okay. How about the NASA or FAA airspace?
Well, we're still in the early days. I think what we have right now we have had a discussion between the FAA and EASA to harmonize At the very beginning, the discussions were more around let's make the same regulations. Now that we know that the regulations are not going to be the same, it was more like let's get along and figure out that what you certify, I will accept, and vice versa. And I think this kind of discussion will happen with the Chinese regulators as well. Timing, no idea.
Cargo operations are probably the most logical first step for many of those companies. But talking about a flying car and a flying delivery truck, one is more sexy than the other. Why, in your opinion, so few companies are pursuing that cargo use case as their first use case, initial use case?
Well, I mean, I think you might have already answered the question, right? I mean, it is easier to get money for something that the investor find appealing, and I don't call them flying cars. I don't like them moniker. I prefer airtaxi. If you need to call them something, because if VTOL, it's too engineering. But I would say that is more appealing. However, we do believe that by 2030, the majority, like half of the market, is going to be cargo. And the reason is that cargo doesn't need to agree to fly; it just flies. And again, when we talk about this, we're talking about middle mile. We're not talking about last mile. Last mile is a different animal. And I think there is a need there, and you see it with like Beta with their aircraft, how they're one of the companies with the higher percentage of firm order in their book, because companies really want these airplanes and they want them tomorrow. They don't want to wait till the next day. And the last part that I would say is, I think you hit another nail on the head. A delivery truck doesn't look like a car. And again, other companies have also understood the fact that voluming out always happens before weighting out. So really, when you have payloads, many times when it comes to packages, really at 80% of your payload, you've already volumed out. So you're done. And this is the other part. If you want to design an eVTOL made for cargo, it needs to look like an Amazon van. If you make it look like a sports car, it will not be good.
What's your take on autonomy with Whisk on the background?
Autonomy will happen. The unfortunate thing is we confused autonomy in the air with autonomy on the ground. And while on the ground, the SAE has been able to say, level 1 to level 5, and you got all of these different levels. The reason was that there is no automation in a car. So the cruise control was not really automation. It was just something that keeps the speed limit, and that's it. And it will run into anything that is in front of it because it's keeping the speed limit. And now we're getting a lot more fancy when it comes to this cruise control. I mean, in a level 2, it's basically a glorified cruise control, but it is still a cruise control. With airplanes, we've always had a lot of automation. In the majority of the flight time, that can go from 50% to over 98% of the flight, 95% of the flight time, the airplane fly itself. Airplanes today are certified to land in 0-0 condition, Cat 3B, not a problem. And I've heard from 777 captains that the airplane is much better than them at landing precisely in the middle of the runway. So when it comes to these, and I think the folks at Whisk have made the point, number one, we need to understand what does it mean autonomy. So this is not an AI airplane talking to an AI ATC. This is an airplane that is flying between waypoints with deconfliction available on the plane. However, there is always someone on the ground that can talk to ATC, that can monitor the plane, maybe not 1, but 3, 5, 10 with time. And the point that I think Brian, the CEO of Whisk, has made is there is a difference between certifying an airplane and operating an airplane. Can you certify an autonomous airplane today? Yes. Can you operate it? That's a different story. And again, what they have set forward is the fact that they want to operate by exception, where a lot of the regulation that says a pilot needs to do this, a pilot needs to do that, they want to bring exemptions to that. And that would be a way for them to operate in, for example, the United States. But last but not least, let's not forget that they're doing a lot of work in New Zealand. And considering the density of the country and the regulator, then I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand would be the first place Whisk start operations.
Archer and Whisk settled their litigation last year. Looking at your crystal ball that you didn't bring to this meeting, do you see a combination of the two?
When it comes to lawsuit, many times the only people that make money are the lawyers, and so the decision was a good decision to put this behind them and move forward. Combination of the two, I have no idea. They're very, very different companies. They're very, very different strategies. So on the surface, it would be very difficult.
Slow and steady wins the race. Will there be a late mover advantage in this market, Sergio?
Well, the late mover advantage is the fact that they come into a world where the regulations are clear and people have already troubleshot operations and everything else. So there could be an advantage. It really depends. And I would say do not discount the large OEMs that haven't raced for the beginning of this entry into service, but they're farther down the line. So I think the jury is still out, and I think that there is some second mover that have promise of catching up at the very least with the first companies that are going to enter service.
Okay, so I have a large OEM in mind. Which OEMs are you referring to?
You can talk about Airbus. You can talk about Superno with Hyundai. You can talk about Textron with e-aviation. There's a lot of them.
Okay, so I had Honda in mind because Honda is, and many people, the general public don't know that, but Honda is an aircraft OEM. Mm-hmm. They have a business jet that they manufacture, they sell, they service. So they are not new to type certificates or any FAA lingo or language. When it comes to high rate manufacturing, I mean, obviously they're an automaker, so they know how to make high rate vehicles. They've been late, or they are late to the EV cars. They do hybrid. It is interesting how they are really in the background of many OEMs. Nobody talks about them, but then they may be the surprise of this market. What's your take on Honda?
They're making good progress. I mean, it's another one of those companies that they don't talk, they just do. So we don't know much about in the public domain, but they're going forward with their development. And I think the next decision is going to be, fly something and then figure out the business case. The part that I would say is I would caution they're an automotive, so they know how to make stuff at big scale. There is other companies that know how to do stuff at big scale, but they don't know how to make cars. And making airplane and making cars are very, very different. You don't have to certify a production line of a car. You have to certify a production line of an airplane. The FAA, it's not NHTSA. And NHTSA tells you that you have to do this crash test to get a rating. But if you fail it, it's not like you're not going to sell your car. The FAA is more a 1 or a 0. If you fail, you're not going to fly. And so I would caution with this narrative of they can make cars, they can make airplane at scale. They can make cars. There is learnings that you can apply to airplanes, but that's not a one-to-one.
Did any company offer you a ride yet?
I wish. I want to ride, but yeah, no, nothing. And it's normal. I mean, it's very normal. I mean, I've worked in flight test, and it's very normal. You do not take the liability to carry anyone that is not an employee on an uncertified airplane.
And then what is the one single parameter that people who are contemplating air taxis, as far as an investment, the one single parameter that they should consider before investing in any stock?
I wish there was a one single parameter. Aerospace is not the industry of one single parameter. So it's I know it's a non-answer, but aerospace is extremely complicated. And it's not an easy thing to understand. It's not like, oh, Tesla, they made the Cybertruck for sure. Everyone's going to buy a Cybertruck. That's a lot easier to understand than airplanes. So unfortunately, there is no magic key to the kingdom of advanced air mobility.
Well said. And then probably the most important question for today: how do you like to spend your weekends?
How do I like to spend my weekends? Except for working, the cooking, just going outside, watching TV, spend time with the wife, so family.
What do you cook, Sergio?
Italian. That's my Italian and steak.
Next time I'm in your neck of the woods, how about we get together?
I would love to.
Looking forward to it. Did we miss anything during this discussion, Sergio? Any
No,
go
no, I
backs?
think you've been super comprehensive.
Tell us where people can find you online.
LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to find me. Same thing with our company. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, but really our go-to channel for spreading information is LinkedIn, followed by Twitter/X.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to link your profiles, both yours and the company, on in the comment section for people to go and look at. Well, I want to thank you again, Sergio. It was very informative. I like your honesty and candor when it comes to talking about these subjects. Thank you for taking the time to sit with me today. As you say, grazie mille. Right?
Prego.
Did I say it correctly? Okay.
You
Very
did.
good.
You did.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Sergio, and hopefully we can catch up later.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.